At my son's 8th birthday party, right in front of everyone, my ex's girlfriend looked me dead in the eye and said, "Let's all be thankful he survived growing up with a mom like that." Laughter. Not just from her, from other parents, from Derek, my ex, the father of my child. He didn't laugh out loud, but he smirked. That smug, familiar curve of his mouth I knew too well. I stood there, frozen, gripping a plastic cup of juice that suddenly felt stupid in my hand. A tightness started in my chest, that kind of pain that's not sharp, just heavy, humiliating. There were balloons everywhere, blue and gold. A happy birthday Micah banner was taped to the fence in crooked letters because I couldn't get the ladder to stay level. I made the cupcakes myself, even though I'm not a baker, because Micah said he didn't want store-bought this year. "Yours taste better, Mom," he told me. That was the kind of day I had planned. Small, honest, simple. Filled with love. And then Tasha, the girlfriend, opened her mouth and stripped it bare in 5 seconds. People laughed. I'll never forget the sound. Not cruel laughter. Worse. That polite, uncomfortable kind. The kind people do when they think it's safer to go along than speak up. No one said a word in my defense. Not one person. And then, Micah, my little boy, walked to the center of the backyard holding a folded piece of paper in his hands. "Wait," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried. Everyone turned. He opened the paper and held it up for everyone to see. It was a drawing, crayon on printer paper. A woman standing in front of a storm. Big black clouds labeled fights, moving, yelling, and a little boy behind her, safe, smiling. "This is my mom," he said. "She saved me when no one else did." The laughter died instantly. I could hear the wind in the trees again. A kid dropped a fork. No one moved. No one spoke. Micah looked at me, not scared, not nervous, just honest. And in that moment, everything I thought was broken in me. Every doubt I carried about whether I was good enough, strong enough, worthy enough got quiet. He saw me. And he spoke for me when I couldn't. You want to know what happened next? You want to know how a child ended a room full of adults with one sentence? Stay with me. Because this story isn't just about a birthday party. It's about what it means to be a mother when no one is clapping for you. When people only see your past and not your fight. It's about how love, real love, can show up in the smallest hands with the loudest truth. My name is Leona. I'm 35 years old, and I've been a single mother for nearly 5 years. If you asked me to describe my life in one word, I'd probably say steady. Not easy, not perfect, but steady. Micah, my son, is everything to me. He was 5 when his father, Derek, finally packed up his things and left. I remember Micah sitting on the couch, hugging his favorite blanket, watching through the window as his dad loaded boxes into the trunk. He didn't cry. He didn't ask questions. He just sat there, quiet. Too quiet for a 5-year-old. That silence haunted me. I blamed myself for a long time, for staying in the relationship too long, for the yelling, for the tension Micah absorbed like a sponge. But the truth is, I fought for that family harder than anyone else did. Derek wasn't abusive. He wasn't cruel. He just stopped trying. Somewhere between job promotions and gym selfies, he lost interest in me, in us, in being a father. When he met Tasha, things changed fast. She's younger, polished, always posting curated videos of her stepmom journey like motherhood is a brand. I used to scroll through her content late at night, tears running down my face, wondering why I wasn't enough, why my love, my efforts, my constant sacrifices weren't enough for either of them. But I stopped doing that. It was poisoning me. Micah lives with me full-time. Derek has visitation twice a month, but he misses some. Tasha says it's because I make things difficult, but all I've ever asked for is consistency and respect. That's been too much, apparently. So when Micah's 8th birthday came around, I wanted to make it special. I didn't have a big budget, but I had ideas, and I had love. I started planning weeks ahead. I let Micah pick the theme. He wanted space and superheroes. And I took a whole Saturday making galaxy centerpieces with dollar store supplies. My younger sister, Mira, helped with decorations. She's always had my back, even when our parents didn't understand why I stayed with Derek so long. She showed up early that morning with iced coffee and a box of candles shaped like rockets. "Today's gonna be great," she said, kissing my cheek. "You've done so much for that boy. He's gonna feel it." And I believed her. I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, the day could go smoothly. Derek texted me the night before asking if it would be okay to bring Tasha. I stared at the message for 5 minutes before replying, if Micah's okay with it, then yes. I showed him the text the next morning and asked gently, is it okay if Dad brings Tasha? He shrugged. I guess, he said. Can she not be mean? My stomach turned, but I kept my voice calm. She'll be polite. I promise guests started arriving around 2. Parents I knew from Micah's school, a couple of my co-workers, kids from the neighborhood. Everyone brought gifts, snacks, and big smiles. The yard was full of laughter and the smell of grilled hot dogs. Micah ran around in a homemade cape Mira helped him sew the week before. He was beaming. That's what I wanted. That moment, that smile. When Derek and Tasha arrived, I felt it before I saw it. The energy shifted. Her heels clacked against the concrete like she owned the place. She wore a white jumpsuit and full makeup, like she was attending a photo shoot, not a kid's party. Derek followed behind, carrying a bag that clearly hadn't been wrapped by him. Tasha air-kissed me and said, "Wow, you really went DIY, huh?" I smiled tightly and thanked her for coming. I could feel people watching. That awkward curiosity, the kind people feel around exes and their replacements. I focused on Micah. He hugged his dad quickly and barely looked at Tasha. She knelt down and said, "Hey, birthday boy, look what we brought." She pulled out a drone and waved it around like it was the Holy Grail. Micah thanked her, but his excitement didn't match hers. Still, I told myself to breathe. Let the moment pass. Let the day stay on track. I kept moving, refilling lemonade, checking on the music, helping kids into the bounce house. I didn't even sit down for the first hour. I was just trying to hold it all together. Everything felt like it might be okay, until it wasn't. The party hit its peak around 4. Kids were running wild in the yard, chasing bubbles and eating too much sugar. The bounce house was a war zone of sock feet and shrieking laughter. I had just brought out the tray of cupcakes when I noticed Tasha standing with a group of parents near the drinks table. She wasn't talking about anything party-related. She was holding court. That voice of hers, high, sharp, always a little too loud, carried across the yard. Derek told me how hard it was. He was basically raising Micah alone for the first few years, she said, swiping her hair behind one ear. Some women just aren't wired for motherhood. It's a shame, really. A few of the other parents chuckled politely. One woman shifted uncomfortably and sipped her drink. I caught her eyes and gave a short, tight smile. She looked away. I moved back to the table, trying to focus on the candles. I started placing them on each cupcake, hands trembling. Mira appeared beside me. "She's baiting you," Mira whispered. "Don't let her win." "I know," I said, glancing at Micah. He was helping a younger kid fix his paper crown. My heart squeezed. I needed to keep this day about him. We gathered everyone near the table for cake. Micah stood in front, grinning, cheeks flushed with happiness. I lit the candles. Everyone clapped. I leaned in and kissed his forehead. "Make a wish, baby," I said. He closed his eyes, blew out the candles, and the crowd burst into cheers. The kids shouted and reached for cupcakes. I started passing them out, smiling, trying to keep my hands from shaking. Then it happened. Tasha stepped forward, raising her plastic cup. "Can I say something real quick?" she said with a bright smile. I stopped mid-step, cupcake in hand. My stomach turned. I knew that tone. I knew what was coming, even if I didn't know the exact words. Everyone quieted down. A few kids were still talking, but most of the adults turned to her, some smiling, some just politely listening. Tasha lifted her cup and said, "Let's all take a moment to be thankful Micah survived growing up with a mom like that." Laughter. Not loud, but real. A few chuckles. One of the dads actually clapped. I saw Derek smirk. Not a full grin, but enough. That slight twitch in his mouth told me everything. He wasn't surprised. He had heard her say worse and never stopped her. I couldn't move. My hand was still holding out a cupcake to a little girl, but I wasn't looking at her anymore. I was looking at Tasha. For a second, I thought about throwing the cupcake in her face. I imagined it, and it felt good, but I didn't. I blinked hard and looked away. People looked at me, some with pity, some with curiosity, no one with courage. No one spoke up. Mira stepped toward Tasha, eyes narrowed, but I touched her arm lightly and shook my head. Not here, not in front of Micah. I forced a breath into my lungs and turned back to the cupcakes. Keep going. Protect the moment. Don't let her take it. Then Micah's voice rang out from behind me. Wait. The word cut clean through the noise. Everyone turned. Micah stood by the garden fence, holding something in both hands. He walked to the center of the yard. The wind caught the edge of his drawing, flapping it slightly. I made this, he said. No one spoke. He unfolded the paper and held it up high. It was a drawing in thick crayon strokes. A woman with a red cape stood in front of a boy. Behind them were black clouds, lightning bolts, and words like fights, alone, and sad. This is my mom, he said. She saved me when no one else did. Silence. Heavy. Full. I couldn't see everyone's faces, but I could feel the shift in the air. Even the kids quieted down. Micah walked over and handed me the drawing. I knelt and took it, hands shaking. He leaned into me and whispered, I wanted them to know. I hugged him tightly and kissed the top of his head. The party didn't end there, but everything changed after that. People stayed, but they weren't laughing anymore. Conversations dropped. Tasha didn't speak again. Derek didn't even look at me. Micah had stood in front of a crowd and told the truth. Not just about me, but about all of it. And no one could pretend they didn't hear it. After Micah spoke, I stood frozen with his drawing in my hand. My legs were bent, my arms around his small frame, and my heart beating loud enough I was sure someone could hear it. He had said it so calmly. No tears, no yelling, just the truth, delivered with the clarity only a child can bring into a room full of adults pretending not to know better. I looked up. The silence still hung like fog. Tasha shifted uncomfortably, smiling at no one in particular. Her confidence had cracked. Derek stared at the ground like it might open up and swallow him. He didn't say a word. I wanted to speak. I wanted to look around at the people who laughed and ask them how they lived with themselves. I wanted to grab Derek by the collar and remind him who had stayed through the colic, the night terrors, the lonely emergency room visits. I wanted to tell Tasha that no amount of perfect makeup or pretty pictures would ever make her strong enough to stand where I have stood. But I didn't. I looked at my son, whose hand now rested in mine, and I decided that if he could be brave in front of them, then I could be quiet and clear. I could be the woman in his drawing. I didn't need to explain myself, not anymore. I stood up slowly, holding the drawing carefully, and placed it on the table next to the cupcakes. Then I cleared my throat. Thank you, Micah, I said. My voice was steady. That's the best gift I've ever received. People started to move again. Small, awkward conversations resumed. Someone turned the music back on, though a little too quietly. The bounce house was still inflated, but the laughter inside had faded. I walked toward the grill where Mira stood waiting. Her eyes were glassy. You okay? She asked, reaching for my hand. I nodded. Yeah, I think I actually am. She looked over at Micah, who had gone back to playing like nothing had happened. He did that for you. I know, I said, and now I need to do something for him. In that moment, I made a decision. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It didn't come with a speech or a grand gesture. But it was real. I decided to stop trying to be polite in the face of cruelty. I decided I wouldn't invite people into Micah's life just because I felt obligated. I decided my peace mattered more than appearances. When the party wound down, people started saying their goodbyes. Some were sincere, others were quick to leave. One of the moms, Paula, came over quietly and said, I'm sorry for what happened earlier. That wasn't right. I appreciated that. I didn't need her to fix it. Just recognizing it was enough. Tasha avoided me completely. She busied herself packing things into her bag, calling out fake cheerful goodbyes to other kids. Derek stayed behind for a moment, helping fold up chairs. As he picked one up, he finally looked at me. I didn't know he'd say that, he said. I raised my eyebrows. You mean tell the truth? He blinked. I didn't mean it like that. No, I said, stepping closer. You meant to stay quiet while your girlfriend insulted the mother of your child. That's exactly what you meant. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I won't make this mistake again, I said. Next time she's not invited. If you can't respect that, we'll go through the courts. Derek nodded once. He didn't argue. He didn't even apologize. He just turned and walked away. After everyone had gone, I sat on the back steps with Micah. He leaned against my shoulder, tired but content. "Did you have a good birthday?" I asked. "The best," he said. "Why?" He smiled. "Because I got to say what I wanted to say. I got to show them." "You didn't have to do that, baby." "I know," he said, "but I wanted to. You always protect me. I wanted to protect you, too." My throat tightened, but I stayed still. I wrapped an arm around him and kissed his forehead. That was the turning point. Not just in the party, not just in the way people saw me, but in the way I saw myself. I realized that being a good mother doesn't mean being silent when disrespected. It means drawing boundaries like lines in the sand and defending them with quiet strength. It means raising a child who can recognize love and stand up for it even when no one else does. The sun had dipped lower in the sky by the time I finished cleaning up. Wrappers, half-eaten cupcakes, juice boxes scattered in the grass. I moved slowly, not because I was tired, but because something inside me had shifted. I wasn't rushing to clean for the sake of appearing put together anymore. I was just doing what needed to be done. Micah sat at the patio table with Mira, coloring quietly. He had changed out of his space-themed t-shirt into a plain one, still wearing the red cape from earlier. He looked peaceful, like none of the chaos had touched him. But I knew better. Kids feel everything. They just express it in different ways. Mira handed me a trash bag. "Want me to take this one out?" "I've got it," I said. "Thanks for staying." She tilted her head. "You sure you're okay?" I looked over at Micah, then at the drawing still taped to the fridge inside. I've never been clearer. Just as we were finishing up, Derek returned. I heard the car door slam and turned to see him walking up the path alone. No Tasha. He stopped halfway across the yard and looked at me like he wasn't sure if he should keep going. "What is it?" I asked. He scratched the back of his neck. "I wanted to talk, just for a minute." Mira stood up immediately. "I'll take Micah inside. He's been dying to show me his video game." She gave me a quick glance before leading him inside. Derek stepped forward. "I didn't handle that well." "No, you didn't," I said. He looked embarrassed, which was rare for him. I didn't know she was going to say that. She said it because she thought she could, because no one in your life has told her not to. He nodded. "I should have said something." "But you didn't," I said. And Micah saw that. That made him flinch. He looked down at his shoes. "I get it," I continued. "You're trying to keep things simple. You don't want conflict. But avoiding conflict isn't the same as keeping peace. It just tells people they can keep disrespecting me and still have access to our son." "I don't want him in the middle," he said. "He's not in the middle. He's been watching from the sidelines for years, waiting for someone to stand up for what's right." Derek was quiet for a long moment. "He surprised me today." "He didn't surprise me," I said. "He's been growing braver every year, and I'm proud of him for saying what he did, but he shouldn't have had to." He looked at me then. Really looked. "You're doing a good job." I didn't respond with a thank you. I didn't need his approval. I had my son's. "I think we should talk about how these visits work going forward," I said. "No more Tasha at events, no more last-minute changes. If you can't follow through, we'll need to revisit the agreement." "I understand," he said. That was the first honest thing he'd said all day. He turned to leave, then paused. "Can I tell Micah goodbye?" "Sure," I said, briefly. He walked inside. I stayed outside, breathing in the cool air, letting my shoulders drop for the first time in hours. A few minutes later, Micah came back out alone. "Dad said he'd see me next weekend." "You okay?" I asked. He nodded. He said he liked my drawing. He should. It told the truth. Micah leaned against me again. "Do you think they'll be nicer next time?" "They might. They might not. But it doesn't change who you are, or who I am." He looked up. "You're the superhero." I smiled. "And you're my reason." Later that night, after the dishes were washed and the decorations taken down, I went to Micah's room to say goodnight. He had fallen asleep with the drawing next to him on the bed, still folded. I sat on the edge of his bed and looked at his small hands, his peaceful face. In the silence, something settled in me. This wasn't about winning or losing. It wasn't about what others thought. It was about the bond between us, built in hard years, strengthened in quiet moments, proven today, in front of everyone. When the world tries to define you by your worst chapter, your child can become your greatest testimony. In front of an audience that thought they knew everything, Micah told the truth, and the truth stopped the room. The morning after the party, I woke up earlier than usual. The house was quiet except for the hum of the fridge and the soft creak of the hallway floor under my feet. I walked into the kitchen and found Micah's drawing still pinned to the fridge where I had left it. The colors were bold, defiant. The storm clouds were dark, but the woman standing in front of them stood taller than everything else. I made coffee and sat at the table, letting myself feel everything I had pushed aside the day before: the humiliation, the anger, the pride. The moment Micah stood up and changed the energy of that entire party played over in my mind like a scene from a movie. But it wasn't fiction. It was real. He had spoken, not for applause, not for attention, but because the truth mattered more to him than being polite. That's what stuck with me. My son didn't just defend me. He reminded me of the power of being seen, not by the crowd, not by the people who laugh or smirk or whisper behind your back, but by the one person who lives in the heart of your every decision, the one who watches you hold it together when you want to fall apart, the one who trusts you to be there even when everything else falls away. I used to worry so much about what other people thought of me, other moms, teachers, my ex's family, his new girlfriend. Every sideways comment would rattle around in my mind for days. I'd wonder if they were right, if I was too emotional, too intense, too messy, if maybe I really wasn't built for this. But that's over now. I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. I've had days where I lost my patience, nights where I cried in the bathroom so Micah wouldn't hear me. I've worked double shifts. I've asked for help when it felt like failure to do so. I've shown up tired, broken, and scared. But I showed up, every single time. That's what motherhood is. It's not a curated photo. It's not matching outfits or expensive gifts. It's not keeping your voice small so other people stay comfortable. It's being the wall between your child and the storm. And some days, it's letting them see that you're human too. Micah taught me that. Later that day, he came into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes, his hair sticking up in every direction. "You hungry?" I asked. He nodded. "Can I have birthday pancakes?" I smiled. "I thought you might say that." As I poured the batter onto the pan, he sat at the table and watched me. "Are you mad about yesterday?" he asked. "No," I said. "I'm proud. You were brave." "Dad didn't look happy." "Maybe not, but that's not your job to fix." Micah thought for a moment. "Is it okay that I said it?" "It's more than okay," I told him. "You told the truth, and the truth matters. Always." He didn't say anything else, just nodded and started coloring on a napkin with a pen he found in the drawer. I watched him quietly, this little person with such a strong heart, and I felt something settle in me that I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace, not because everything was resolved, not because people suddenly understood me, but because I had clarity. And clarity is a gift that comes when you stop trying to prove your worth to people who aren't capable of seeing it. Micah saw it. That was enough. The lesson from that day isn't about revenge or public redemption. It's about finding your voice when others try to silence it. It's about recognizing the quiet power of being loved by someone who truly knows your heart. And it's about raising a child who tells the truth, even when it shakes the room. To every mother who's been dismissed, misjudged, or mocked, your worth isn't up for debate. Your child knows the truth. And one day, when it matters most, they'll speak it, loud and clear, just like mine did. Thank you for listening to my story. If it meant something to you, if it reminded you of your own strength, or someone who stood up for you when no one else would, please take a moment to like this video. Share it with someone who might need to hear it today. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever been in a moment where someone surprised you by standing up for you? Or maybe you've been the one who spoke the truth when no one else would. Your stories matter. They deserve to be told too. And if you want more real stories like this, about motherhood, resilience, and the quiet courage it takes to keep going, subscribe to the channel. You're not alone, and this space is for you. See you in the next one. I still remember the way the glass felt in my hand, cold, smooth, trembling slightly from the shake in my fingers. The laughter echoed around me like a cruel reminder that I didn't belong. I was pouring drinks, trying to help, trying to stay invisible, when I heard her voice. That's the maid, not family. The words sliced through the air sharper than the chill from the ice bucket beside me. My mother-in-law, Mina, said it loud enough for the nearest table to hear. She wasn't even trying to whisper. Her lips curled in that smug, passive-aggressive smile she's perfected over the years. The kind that makes you question if you heard her right. Except I had. I definitely had. Then, before I could react, I heard him. Rishi, my husband, my partner, the man who once told me I was the strongest woman he knew. He smirked. She cleans up well, at least. The crowd burst into laughter. I stood there, stunned. My arm froze mid-pour. The lemonade spilled slightly over the rim of the glass, dripping onto my sari. I didn't even notice. My heart was pounding in my ears, drowning out everything else. My hands trembled as I clenched the serving tray against my chest. I forced a smile, small, mechanical, like the kind you give strangers when you bump into them in a grocery aisle. That's what I felt like in that moment. A stranger, in my own family. Was this who I was to them? Just a helper? An outsider pretending to be part of something I clearly wasn't? My chest felt tight, like the air had suddenly thickened. I could barely swallow the lump forming in my throat. My eyes darted toward Rishi, silently begging for, I don't even know what. An apology? A glance of regret? Something human? But he was laughing. Not loudly, but with that amused smirk, eyes twinkling like this was just harmless fun. His hand casually wrapped around his glass as if this was normal, as if I wasn't dying inside. Why did his words hurt so much? I'd heard worse from his mother. Mina never liked me. She made that clear from day one, too middle class, too ordinary. But I always thought Rishi saw through that he saw me. Apparently not. And the worst part? No one said anything. No one stopped the joke. The room just moved on. The music played, someone toasted again, and I was forgotten like background noise. I felt the sting behind my eyes, but I refused to let the tears fall. Not here, not in front of them. I straightened my back, adjusted the tray, and turned away. One foot in front of the other, I reminded myself. Just keep walking. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Arav, my son. He was standing a few feet away, near the floral arch. His eyes were wide, watching everything. Our eyes met, and for a moment, neither of us said anything. He looked confused, hurt even. I forced another smile just for him. He didn't smile back. That moment, that silence between us. It said everything. I turned back to the drink table, pretending to be busy. But my heart wasn't in it anymore. The laughter still echoed, but now it was just background noise to the storm building inside me. I didn't know it yet, but something was about to shift. And that shift, it would come from the most unexpected place. Not me, not Rishi, not even Mina, but my 9-year-old son, and a microphone that picked up every single word. If you had asked me a year ago what I imagined family looked like, I would have painted a picture full of warmth, shared meals, loud laughter, kids running underfoot, hands held tightly through tough times. But when I married into the Metas, I quickly learned that some families measure love by status, not by sacrifice. I'm Ria. I'm 38. I work in corporate finance by day and freelance graphic design by night. I'm not flashy. I don't own designer bags or take yoga retreats to Bali, but I work hard. I save. I build quietly. When I met Rishi 10 years ago, I thought I was stepping into love, into something secure. We were so different. Him, born into a legacy of doctors and businessmen. Me, the daughter of a retired school teacher and a mother who passed away before I turned 20. But he made me believe we could bridge those differences. That love would be enough. It wasn't. His mother, Mina, never saw me as part of them. She called me practical, which is Mina speak for boring. I didn't fit into her world of gold-plated cutlery and choreographed sangeets. Over the years, her disapproval moved from sharp glances to sharper words. Rishi? He became quieter about it. He stopped defending me after the first few years. Maybe it was easier for him that way. But this story isn't about Rishi and Mina. It's about the night I hit a breaking point, and the boy who unknowingly stitched something back together. It all began with my cousin Priya's wedding. Priya is like a little sister to me. When my mom died, I was 15. Priya would follow me everywhere. She'd sneak into my room, braid my hair, sit beside me while I studied. She was just 7 then, but somehow she always knew when I needed someone. So when she got engaged last year, I was ecstatic. But then Uncle Raj, her father, got diagnosed with kidney failure. Medical bills drained most of their savings, and I saw the stress in his eyes even as he tried to smile through wedding planning. One night over tea, I told Priya, "Let me help. Use my savings. Let me pay for the venue and catering." She immediately said no. So did Uncle Raj, but I insisted. "Just don't tell anyone. Let it be your day." I didn't want credit. I just wanted to see her walk down the aisle radiant and carefree. So behind the scenes, I coordinated vendors, helped Aunt Sunita with invites, handled late-night calls about floral delays, and wired payments without a second thought. I didn't tell Rishi either. It wasn't out of secrecy. It was just something I wanted to do on my own. The wedding day arrived in a blur of color and nerves. The venue sparkled with fairy lights and jasmine garlands. Laughter floated through the air like confetti. Priya looked like a dream, her lehenga glinting under the warm evening lights. I wore a simple sari, mint green, understated. I didn't want to overshadow anyone. I was running around helping coordinate things, making sure the dessert trays were replenished and the drinks table didn't run dry. I didn't mind. I liked being useful. No one really noticed me. Not until that moment. Not until Mina's voice sliced through the noise like a siren. "That's the maid, not family." And just like that, everything I'd done, every late night, every saved rupee, every tiny act of love, was erased by one sentence. The woman who saw me raise her grandson, who lived off our shared income for years, looked at me and saw nothing but help. But that was just the beginning, because someone else noticed, someone who had been watching everything quietly, and he wasn't going to let it go. I don't know how I kept my composure after that. Maybe it was habit. Years of swallowing my pride in front of Mina had trained me well, but something about this time, it was different. It wasn't just the insult. It was the laughter that followed, the kind of laughter that told me I was a joke, that no one, not even Rishi, thought I deserved better. I could still feel the sting in my cheeks as I stood by the drink station. My sari felt suddenly too plain, too tight, like it didn't belong here either. I looked down at the droplets of lemonade clinging to my blouse, the condensation from the glasses sliding onto my hands. I wiped them on the edge of the tablecloth, trying to busy myself with something, anything, so I wouldn't have to look at anyone. My chest felt tight. I wanted to disappear. Across the room, Rishi was surrounded by his cousins. He leaned back in his chair, laughing along with the rest of them, lifting his glass like he hadn't just humiliated me. I kept telling myself to breathe, but it wasn't working. A familiar voice pulled me back. "You okay?" It was my Uncle Raj. His eyes were kind but tired. He was holding a plate of gulab jamun and balancing it like it weighed 100 pounds. I nodded. "Just a little warm in here." He smiled and lowered his voice. "You've done more than enough, Ria. You made this wedding happen. I don't think we could have done any of it without you." I swallowed hard. That meant something. It did. But I couldn't shake what had just happened. My mind kept looping that moment like a broken record. That's the maid, not family. She cleans up well, at least. Their voices had embedded themselves in my brain, echoing off the walls of my self-worth. And then I saw him. Arav, my 9-year-old. He was standing near the back of the hall beside the DJ booth, fidgeting with the buttons on his shirt. His eyes weren't on the stage, or the music, or the dancing cousins. He was watching me. Our eyes met, his brows furrowed, and he tilted his head just slightly as if to ask, "Why did Dad say that? Why did Nani laugh?" And though he didn't speak a word, I felt the question as clear as day. I smiled or tried to, a soft, forced curve of the lips, but I saw it, the flicker in his eyes. He knew something wasn't right, and that broke me more than the comment itself, because now he had heard it too. My sweet, observant little boy who always left sticky notes on my laptop that said, "You got this, Mama," and drew tiny, smiley faces when he saw I was stressed. He had heard them laugh at me, and the worst part? I didn't say anything. I just kept working, kept moving, like always. The wedding continued around me. Music, dancing, toasts. Priya and her groom, Arjun, were glowing on stage, laughing and clinking glasses with their guests. And I was behind the scenes again, trying to stitch myself together with trembling hands and a smile that didn't reach my eyes. I should have said something. To Mina, to Rishi, to someone. But I didn't. I told myself I was being mature, that this was Priya's night, not mine, that I could cry later. But deep down, I knew what it really was. Fear. Fear that if I stood up for myself, I'd only confirm what they believed about me, that I was too dramatic, too emotional, too lower class to understand how these things worked. So I stayed silent. I thought the moment had passed. I thought no one else noticed. But I was wrong, because Arav had noticed, and he wasn't done. I thought I could brush it off, just focus on helping Priya, blending into the background and getting through the night. But the truth is, I wasn't okay. I was unraveling inside. I slipped out the side door of the reception hall and found a quiet spot by the garden. The fairy lights strung between the trees flickered gently, like they, too, were tired of pretending everything was perfect. My fingers found the edge of the wooden bench, and I sat down slowly, afraid that if I moved too fast, the emotions would spill out before I was ready. My hands were shaking again. I pulled out my phone, not to message anyone, but just to hold something solid. I looked at the screen, blank. No new messages, no apology from Rishi, not that I expected one. I stared at the reflection of my own face in the black screen, eyes rimmed with coal and hurt, lips pressed into a flat line, like if I relaxed even a little, everything would fall apart. Why did his words sting so much? Why had I let it happen? And then came the guilt. The guilt that I was even thinking about myself when Priya's biggest day was unfolding inside. I could hear the music through the walls, laughter, applause, the dull thud of bass beneath someone's heartfelt speech. I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, "Get up. Go back in. You can cry tomorrow." That's when I heard small footsteps crunching on the gravel behind me. I turned. It was Ayarav. He walked slowly toward me, his tiny frame illuminated by the soft yellow garden lights. His hands were in the pockets of his little sherwani. That boy has always been so expressive. He didn't need words to speak. His face said everything. He sat next to me without saying anything. After a few seconds, he leaned his head on my shoulder. I closed my eyes. "I heard what Nani said," he whispered. My heart clenched. Arav. And what Dad said after. I opened my mouth, but no words came. What could I say? That they didn't mean it? That it was a joke? He lifted his head and looked up at me. "Why didn't you say anything?" His voice wasn't accusing, just curious, innocent. I hesitated. Because sometimes grown-ups stay quiet to keep peace. He looked confused, but it wasn't peaceful. It was mean. I let out a shaky laugh. "Yeah, it was." There was a pause. Then he asked, "Did you really pay for this whole wedding?" I looked down at him. I helped, just to make sure everything went smoothly for Priya. He nodded slowly, eyes distant. "You always help." He stood up before I could say anything else and brushed imaginary dust off his sleeves, like he was preparing for something big. "Where are you going?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just smiled. That quiet, confident smile he only wears when he's decided something for himself. Then he turned and walked back inside. I followed, keeping my distance, thinking maybe he was going to the dance floor or to grab a juice box. But then I saw him veer right, toward the stage. My heart dropped. The MC was mid-sentence when Arav tapped him on the elbow. I watched the man lean down, surprised, as Arav whispered something. Then the microphone changed hands. Arav stood there, under the lights, in front of 150 people, holding the mic like it weighed more than him. I froze. He cleared his throat. And in that split second, time stopped. I had no idea what he was going to say, but I knew. Everything was about to change. Arav's little voice echoed through the speakers, cutting through the noise like a knife through satin. "Excuse me, everyone." The room hushed almost instantly. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Forks paused halfway to mouths. Even the DJ turned down the music without being asked. All eyes were suddenly on him, on my 9-year-old son standing center stage, holding a microphone with both hands like it was too big for him. His Sherwani sleeves were slightly crumpled, his hair tousled from running around, but his eyes, they were steady, focused, brave. He cleared his throat again. I just wanted to say something about my mom. My heart dropped to my stomach. Oh God, what was he doing? I took a step forward instinctively, my mouth already forming the words, Arav, no. But my feet stopped. Something in me said, let him speak. He took a breath, just like I'd taught him before his first school recital. Deep in through the nose, out through the mouth. She's not the maid, he said loud and clear. The silence that followed was deafening. Every muscle in my body tensed. I felt the blood rush to my face. I could hear someone at table 5 gasp. Mina turned her head sharply like she'd misheard, but she hadn't. She's my mom, Arav continued. She helped pay for this wedding. She stayed up really late working on her computer for weeks. She skipped her birthday to help Priya auntie. He looked toward the bride and groom. Priya's hands covered her mouth. Her eyes were already glistening. My hands were clasped in front of me now, trembling. She's always helping people, Arav said, his voice starting to shake just a little. And she never says anything when people are mean to her, but I think that's not fair. I saw Rishi shift uncomfortably in his seat, jaw tightening. Mina was frozen, lips slightly parted, as if she was about to say something, but didn't. And she's not a maid, Arav repeated. She's amazing. She made this whole place look beautiful and nobody even noticed. He paused, eyes scanning the room. And then he said the words that broke something open in me. But I noticed. A breath caught in my throat. I covered my mouth with my hand. My knees felt weak. The world spun a little. He looked right at me, voice gentler now. I love you, Mama. You're the best person I know. There it was. The room stayed still for a second longer, like the world was holding its breath with me. Then it happened. One person started clapping, then another, and then it spread. Slow, deliberate, respectful applause, rippling through the room like a quiet storm. Not the rowdy kind meant to hype a crowd. No, this was different. This was raw, genuine, felt. I was still frozen, eyes brimming, when Grandpa Dev stood up from his seat at the front table. He'd been quiet all evening, nodding along to speeches, smiling at Priya's joy. But now he walked. No, marched. Up to Arav and put his hand on his shoulder. Well said, young man, he said into the mic. Sometimes the youngest voices carry the most truth. Arav smiled nervously, handing the microphone back. Dev looked out over the crowd and said, we owe Rhea a thank you. Not just for today, but for what she's shown us all. And just like that, I was seen. Really, truly seen. No longer the help, no longer invisible. But the woman who'd held everything together, quietly, until the one person who mattered most finally made the whole room listen. The applause faded slowly, like the tide pulling back after a wave that no one saw coming. And in the stillness that followed, I stood there, frozen, overwhelmed, exposed, but not in the way I feared. This time, I wasn't humiliated. I was held by that silence. By the stares that had shifted from judgment to recognition, by the quiet nods from people I never thought noticed me at all. I don't remember walking up to Arav. My feet just moved, like they knew where I needed to be before my mind caught up. He turned to me with that shy smile, the one he gives me when he's not sure if he's done something wrong or brilliant. I knelt down and hugged him tightly, burying my face in his shoulder. You were so brave, I whispered. I just told the truth. He said simply. Behind us, the celebration continued, but something had changed. It was subtle, but real. Mina didn't look at me the rest of the night. She barely touched her food. Rishi? He said nothing, but his silence was loud, guilty, uncomfortable. He didn't make a scene, didn't apologize, just stayed close to his cousins, sipping his drink with a tense jaw. That used to bother me. Not anymore, because for once I wasn't sitting in my own corner wondering if I was being overly sensitive. The truth had been laid bare, not by me, but by a child, my child, who had seen more clearly than most adults ever do, and that That changed everything. After the dinner, Priya came running over in tears. She hugged me like she was holding on for dear life. "I'm so sorry, Dee Dee," she whispered. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." I smiled through tears. "I didn't do it for them. I did it for you." She pulled back and cupped my cheeks. "I know, and I'll never forget it." Even Uncle Raj, who's usually a man of few words, came to me with misty eyes and said, "Your son has more backbone than most men I know." Funny how it took a 9-year-old to finally give me back something I didn't even realize I'd lost, my voice. I didn't confront Meena. I didn't need to. Her silence said enough. And for once, she was the one shrinking in the background, not me. As for Rishi, the ride home was quiet. Arav fell asleep in the back seat, his little hand still clutching the leftover rose petals Priya had given him. Rishi stared straight ahead, tapping the steering wheel. I didn't say a word. When we got home, I carried Arav to his bed, tucked him in, kissed his forehead. As I turned to leave, he mumbled sleepily, "Mama?" "Hmm?" "Don't let them make you small again." I froze. My throat closed up. "I won't," I whispered. "I promise." And I meant it. The next morning, I woke up with a kind of clarity I hadn't felt in years. I brewed my tea, sat by the window, and let the light hit my face. Warm. Software. Unapologetic. This wasn't just about a wedding or a cruel joke. This was about years of swallowing words I should have spoken, about shrinking to make others comfortable, about mistaking silence for strength. Not anymore. Arav reminded me who I was, not the maid, not just the helper, not invisible. I was the woman who showed up when it mattered, the woman who built quietly, the mother who raised a boy brave enough to speak up when the world stayed silent. And that will always be enough. So if you've ever felt small in a room full of people who were supposed to protect you, if you've ever swallowed your truth just to keep the peace, I see you, and I hope my story reminds you that your silence doesn't make you weak, but your voice, when you finally use it, or even when someone uses it for you, it can move mountains. Sometimes it only takes one brave heart to speak the truth, and sometimes that brave heart is 9 years old and holding a mic in front of 150 people. I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had a moment where someone finally stood up for you, or where you stood up for yourself when no one else would? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and I promise you, you're not alone. If this story moved you, helped you feel seen, or just made you think, please like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more real stories that speak straight from the heart. And hey, thank you for being here, truly. I don't take it for granted. Until next time, take care of your heart and never be afraid to take up space.